Hi, guys. Awesome. I'm so glad some of you are already here. We'll give everyone a minute to hop on. So I'm here for our quarterly training. So this is our quarter one of 2023 training, all about paperless individual counseling sessions, hands-on activities to keep students engaged. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'll be sharing a slide deck here. If you have any questions or comments throughout, go ahead and participate in the chat, like super casual. I'll be interacting in there as well. And then at the end, we'll do a more formal Q&A as well. So you can save your questions for then or just pop them in as we go. All righty, let's see here. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, can everyone see the slide deck? Give me a, oh, I guess none of your faces are here. Give me a thumbs up symbol, or anyways, let me know if you can. And let's get the chat going. Okay, perfect. I'll just admit everyone to the waiting room. So again, this is paperless individual counseling, hands-on activities to keep the students engaged. And this is part of our Impact Quarterly Training Series. And I'm here to help make your counseling life a little bit easier, I hope. That's my goal. So a big part of Impact is professional development. And I love to do these trainings on hot topics or as needed topics that you guys have. Now, I've developed these strategies over the years, and they have been a game changer. So this topic was actually born because, as you may know, I started working at the international school here again. So I live in Costa Rica, and I used to be the school counselor at a K-12 international school back 2019-2020 school year. But I haven't worked there in a few years because I have young children. But I miss it, and so I've been going back and helping out their counselor there a few times a month. So I've been seeing a student individually, and it's a student I used to see back in the day, and I'm seeing him again. And I'm actually seeing him for his parents are separating individual session. And I was having to get creative with some things to get him to open up. And that's kind of where a lot of these strategies were born. Some things that I've been doing that have been working well. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to share this with everyone. So I'll dive deep into that a little more here in a second. But first off, go ahead in the chat, drop me a 1, a 2, or a 3 to tell me what you think about individual counseling. So number 1 would be, I love it. I feel confident in planning and implementing these sessions. Number 2 would be, I like it. I love meeting one-on-one with students, but always wing it. Or number 3, help. I feel unprepared, which makes me dread these sessions. So if you can just drop 1 in the chat. I would say I'm honestly typically a number 2. I like it. I like the one-on-one atmosphere, but I do end up kind of winging it. Oh, Jessica said 2.5. I like that. So is that in between a 2 and a 3? Yeah, and then of course, like I said, I have learned some strategies that have been working really well for me lately. So I'm excited to share them with you. But no worries. Oh, Lori's here. I'm here to help with easy to implement and totally doable strategies. You've got this. Okay, so let's talk about why engagement matters. Like we're always saying, strategies to keep your students engaged. But what does that even mean, and why do we care? Why do we want to keep our kiddos engaged? Well, fun hands-on activities increase student engagement. So if you're doing things that aren't just like worksheets or aren't just lecture style boring, this pertains to everything, not just individual sessions. Think about your class lessons, your small groups. The more fun it is and the more hands-on it is, the more it'll increase student engagement. And why do we want kiddos to be engaged? Well, the more engaged they are in the session, the more likely they are to meet their goals and their objectives. So if you think about it, we're meeting with kids for a reason, right? Hopefully you're doing like some kind of pre-test and post-test data collection. If you're not, that's okay. We have some resources inside Impact you can start using, like self-assessments and things like that. But hopefully you're measuring something, right? You're not just meeting randomly. You're like, okay, we have a purpose. We want this student to learn coping skills, or we want this student to learn anger management strategies, or we want this student to cope better with their parents' divorce, or be able to talk to someone. So those are our goals and objectives for the session. And they're going to be more likely to meet those goals and objectives if they're engaged in the session. So to do that, we can use hands-on activity. And a lot of this has to do with making a session memorable. So I want you to think about when you were in school and you were a kid, if you think back to lessons you remember from elementary school, it's probably something memorable you did. Like I think it was our counselor, I'm assuming maybe our librarian that had to do with the book. But I remember in elementary school, this one time there was a big like cardboard fake like turnip green, and it was in the ground, and the teacher was acting like she couldn't get it out, and then she asked one student to come help her, and he pulled on her and she pulled it, and then another student still couldn't get it, and then finally we had like a chain of students, the whole class, and then we could finally pull it out, and it was a cooperation lesson, right? Obviously that was very hands-on and memorable for me. It wasn't like a little PowerPoint she came in and did or anything like that. It was like a hands-on activity, and that made it really memorable for me. So creating a memorable session helps students retain and connect with the concepts. So it'll be more memorable. They'll actually retain the information ideally and connect with the concepts like, oh yeah, this is fun. Like I know I'm making the connection to my everyday life, how I can use this strategy and apply it to my life. And it's honestly just more fun for you and the students. So of course we want it to be fun for the students, but also for you, it can be boring to teach the same thing over and over again, or to do the same tired activity over and over again. So if you make it engaging, do something cool, then it's more fun for everyone. And the kids can tell if your heart's in it or not. They know if you're like running to do this individual session in between two groups in a lesson, and you're like checking your email on the side, like they can tell. So we want to give them our full undivided attention for the small time we have with them, and create a memorable session. Okay, so I'm going to go through quickly here, and I'm going to show you some actual strategies you can start using right away, as well as some photos, so you can kind of get an idea of what it would look like in your classroom. So first up, role play with figurines. Okay, so this is a picture I took literally during my session, right after my student had left. And role playing with figurines. Now I did this, like I said, this training was kind of born out of necessity. I was doing this myself with the individual counseling student, and I was like, oh, I've got to share this with the group, because I was like, what am I going to do to get this kid to open up? I want him to talk about his family, but I don't just want to sit down and be like, let's talk about your parents' divorce. So I decided to give him a variety of objects. These are my toddler son's toys, and say, pick people who this could represent and tell me why. So I gave him an example. This is a 5th grader. And I was like, if this was my family, I would be the elephant, because I feel like I'm kind of the leader and the planner of our family. I kind of, know what's going on with everybody. My, son would be the dinosaur, because he's like kind of wild and fun. So he's blues, real like colorful. It has his personality, but also very strong. So I was giving him a few examples, but then he took this activity and ran with it, y'all. 5th grade boy who was, closed up, and this allowed him to really open up. He was telling me who was which animal. He didn't even include himself as an animal, which I thought was interesting, because I did during my example. But all of this really led to more insight about his family situation. Then we did it again the next week, and I have some different objects. Some people say the same, some people were different. You can see where the kids actually move the figurines to represent like housing placements, who they're close to in their life, who they don't trust, just different things like that. The second time we did it, I didn't do animals only. I added in like some keys and a little boat, and I think I had something else. Just to see if he would pick those, any kind of analogy, but he actually didn't. He stuck with animals. But this is something you could do, buy or find little figurines and role play with those. And it was super effective. I had never really done anything like this before, and it just worked awesome. And now I think I'll do it a lot. So why it works, it removes awkward barriers, right? So it's kind of awkward to sit down and be like, let's chat about your family changes since your parents have separated. So it removes the awkward barrier. It's hands-on. The kids get to kind of play with them, get into it. And like I said, I thought, he might think it was a silly activity, but I was very impressed with how he responded. It initiates the conversation. So, tell me about the elephant. Why did you pick this person to be the elephant? What does that mean? Okay. And it externalizes their feelings. So it can be really hard to talk, about tough situations, about people you love. But if you're externalizing them to these animals, it can be a little easier, especially if they're talking about themselves. Like, oh, well, I'm like a boat because I'm, fast, but I'm also strong, but I also am carrying a lot, an analogy like that. It can be a lot easier if they're talking about a boat than if they're talking about themselves. So like I said, oops, I have a typo here. Sorry, I wrote offer a variety of objectives, but I meant a variety of objects. So the more objects, the better, so they can, pull from it. And like I said, I started with just animals the first session, but second session, I added in some other stuff. You could also do this with household objects or school objects. So it could even be like a marker, a paper clip, anything for an analogy would be great. But as far as the actual like role play of personifying things, I thought the animals were better because they're kind of like people in the fact that, they have eyes and they're mammals and things like that. It's a little easier to make the connection than with like a paper clip. But any kind of objects, you could use for analogy, but animals particularly worked well as like little figurines. So this was something I just started with the role play and found it super helpful. Another one you can do is you can role play with chairs. So you may have heard of, maybe you remember back in grad school, you learned about Gestalt therapy and the empty chair technique. So the empty chair technique is where you can have the students sit in one chair, and then in the other chair, they can imagine they're talking to themselves, maybe giving themselves advice about a certain situation, or that they're talking to someone else. So maybe there's someone in their life that they're having a hard time communicating with, or they want to practice a hard conversation, and this would be a good chance for them to practice that. And again, it removes those awkward barriers. So a lot of times it's hard, to sit down. What do you want to tell your dad or something? And they're going to close up right away. So this is kind of a fun way to do it, like talk to the chair. Again, modeling goes a long way. So if you want to model this for them ahead of time, that can be really helpful. Again, similar to the figurines, it also externalizes feelings. If they're talking to themselves, their imaginary self sitting in a chair, that can make it a little easier than, self-analyzing a situation and taking their own feedback. Now, you could also do this. This isn't really the Gestalt therapy way, but you could also use it for conflict resolution, perspective taking. So you could have it where, let's say you have some students come in and they're having a conflict, or someone had a conflict with another student. You could have them practice how they're going to resolve the conflict. Or you could have, if the students come together, which I guess this isn't technically individual counseling, this would just be like a drop-in. But if the students come together because they had a conflict at recess or something, you could have them, sit in their chairs, tell their sides of the story, and you could have them switch and really practice that perspective taking. How do you think the other person felt? How did it make you feel? So role play with chairs. This is great. You don't even have to buy or bring anything. You probably have an empty chair in your office. Play-Doh or modeling clay. So this one's really popular. Love using Play-Doh. So why it works is it's like a paperless illustration, right? So you can even make figurines out of it. There's a little elephant there if you want to do a 2-in-1. Or it's just a way for kids to describe something. So often in individual counseling, we'll have the kids draw something, right? Like, oh, here's a mirror, draw your future self or something like that. Well, instead, you could make it more hands-on and fun and paperless if you said, okay, now you're going to mold out, design for me your future self. And then they have to get creative and then explain it. Again, you can use it with role play like figurines. You could display emotion faces. So I've seen this a lot where you can have like a blank face on the board. You could draw it on the whiteboard, or if you have one of those little whiteboards, and then they have to use the clay to make different emotions. So make a smile, show the eyebrows, how things change based on affect. So that can be really good for emotional regulation. And it also works as a stress ball. So if you ever see kids, if you're chatting about something, you may notice them just kind of like grinding their hands in the Play-Doh or modeling clay, and it literally works as a stress reliever as well. So Play-Doh is awesome. Okay, a ball toss. So I do these a lot in group counseling as a conversation starter, but this also works with individual counseling. Instead of just sitting down across from each other and it being really awkward, just start tossing a ball back and forth, just talking. How's it going? What are you up to today? They don't even need to know that this is a strategic activity. You could just toss the ball without anything on it back and forth just to get the conversation started. Or you could make it more purposeful with discussion questions. So kind of an example here, you could put some strips of paper on the ball, or if you want to be super low prep and reuse the ball a lot, you could just put numbers on it, and then on the whiteboard or something, have the numbers correspond to a question, and then you could do some discussion questions. So all of these individual activities are intended to remove that barrier, because I feel like students get intimidated and it may feel kind of awkward, even for you as the facilitator, to just sit at a table and be like, okay, we're going to talk, let's do this. So these are ways to break down those barriers, to get students to build rapport with you, to open up and to share. Legos. Okay, so this is funny. I was typing this and I'm almost certain, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm almost certain that the plural of Lego is Lego with no S. I learned this a while ago from some Lego enthusiasts, but I just can't bring myself to do it. I was like, that just doesn't look right. So Legos, I don't know. But any kind of a Lego or something similar, it doesn't have to be name brand, obviously. These work because you can build things. So again, it's like an analogy would be great here when it comes to building up. So what are the qualities of a good friend? How can we build each other up with our statements? How can we break this down? If we have a conflict, how does that break it down? How does it build it up? Anything like that is easy to do. It's very visual. You can also role play like we did with the figurines. You could, make the little Lego people and use those to do a role play. So know your audience. If you have a kid who really likes animals, the animal thing might be cool. If you have a kid is interested in Legos, then that would be a cool way to use those figurines. And it provides a distraction, which encourages sharing. So maybe you just have them on the table when they come in, and kind of like the ball toss. They don't even know that they're doing an activity yet. And okay, sit down, you can play with those if you want. And you'll watch them, they start building, and then they'll kind of start opening up. Because a lot of times counselors feel like they have to fill the silent pauses, right? The awkward silences, fill the void. So we'll kind of like interject. And sometimes these kids, they need a minute to process and they're still thinking. So if they're just playing with their Legos, and then they can kind of, share when they're ready. And you can play with the Legos too. You could also use, I'm telling you, having children has made me a better counselor just because I know about toys. Magnetiles are something my toddler son loves, and those would be really cool. They're a little more expensive, but maybe you could invest in some for your office. I think magnetiles would be really cool to build towers and stuff too. Anything like tactile, you got to think these kids are coming to you in between breaks from academics. So they've already been writing a lot, or, kind of in that academic brain. And so maybe it's more fun to get their creative brain and going. Jenga, tried and true counselor favorite over here. Jenga is awesome. Why does Jenga work? Why do we love it so much? Well, kind of like the Legos, you again can do the analogy of building something up, right? So, building a tower, qualities of a good friend, taking it down, things that would hurt a relationship or a friendship. Self-esteem, building it up, things that would build your self-esteem, taking down things that would not help your self-esteem. Conversation starters, how you most likely know Jenga. So if you, again, you can number it and have the numbers correspond to conversation starters that you then change. So you can redo the activity again and again, or you can put actual paper strips on the Jenga blocks to go over with kiddos. So as they play, as they pull one out, and they read the question and answer it. Jenga is also really great because you can easily personalize it. So like I was saying, you could change the student to student. Why they're seeing you. So you could really personalize the questions to make it benefit your session and help them reach their goals. Soda pop. Okay, I did this with the same student whose parents are going through a divorce. He's feeling a lot of anger. So I wanted to do the soda pop activity. And this is actually pulled from the anger management individual session. It's all included in Impact. But I was like, I'm going to get a LaCroix from the fridge, and then we can really practice, exploding. A bottle would have been better than a can. I think it would have been like even more explosion. But this was so cool. So he, we talked about things that were the least upsetting to the most upsetting, and how your stressors and things that make you angry kind of build up over time. And then eventually, if you don't do anything about them or cope with them, then you're going to pop, you're going to explode. So then, that leads into the conversation of how to prevent these things from happening, or how to identify coping strategies you can use when these things do happen. But the best part was, so I give him the cane, and I didn't know how this was going to go. I didn't even know if it was going to work, actually. But he, had the cane, and he's like, he had already written these down. And then I asked him, like, okay, so tell me about this one thing. He said, he doesn't like when things are out of place. He has diabetes, and his mom put his insulin thing like in the wrong area, and it made him upset. So I was like, how does that, make you feel? How does that make you angry? And he just gave it like a little shake. But then something like his sister made him very angry, and he's like, shake, 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 shake. And then finally, the last one was people not being nice, and he shook it a lot. And then we cracked it open, and it overflowed. So it was just like a really cool analogy that you can totally do. So again, analogy of building up, but in this case, it's like building up the emotions, building up the anger, and then seeing it all. It's a physical representation. So it's really hands-on and memorable, right? He's going to be like, oh man, if his mom's like, what'd you do in counseling today? Or even if he doesn't remember because he's a 5th grade boy, maybe he'll be like, oh yeah, we used that Coke can or whatever. That was pretty cool. And then hopefully he'll remember some of the strategies we've talked about as well. Similarly, you can do a volcano. These are great for anger management. Now, I've done this with a group, but it would be even easier with an individual because you don't have to manage like 4 or 5 different volcanoes. But it's like baking soda and vinegar and some food coloring, get some of your clay that you have out. And then this, obviously you want to include the discussion and the analogy piece of it, right? Like how your anger builds up and they can say things that make them angry. You're adding in the ingredients and then it explodes. But anything like this is super memorable, super visual, very hands-on. The kids love it. And the whole point here is it's not a worksheet, right? And I have a volcano worksheet. I usually pair the two together, like a written reflection based on this. And a written reflection is so beneficial. But sometimes you just need to do the tactile thing to really get the point across. So this whole presentation is about paperless. But ideally, I think, I would recommend combining the two, like doing a hands-on activity and then a paper reflection. But if you're just trying to pull something, if you don't have time to prep, if you didn't print the papers, you can still have really valuable, memorable counseling sessions with things you likely already have in your office. But yes, volcano, this is a great one. I love this one so much. Dry erase board. Okay, so this one you can do like an Etch-a-Sketch or Magna-Doodle or just a regular dry erase board with a marker. Obviously, Etch-a-Sketch, Magna-Doodle are like a little more fun and memorable, but this is really cool. Kids can erase negative thoughts. So they could write negative thoughts that they're having, or it could be like a growth mindset versus fixed mindset, erase the fixed mindset. And then you talk about replacing it with the growth mindset. But I was specifically thinking about negative thoughts when I did this one. And it's so empowering to actually erase it. Like it's visual and hands-on. So like sometimes, you may be telling a student, okay, name a negative thought. Now let's correct it to a positive thought. And you do it on a piece of paper. But how cool is it to have a negative thought about yourself and then to physically erase it, to physically wipe it off? Like that feels really good and really empowering. So that's why I love this one. So I'm pretty sure all of you have access to, whiteboard marker, same thing. But if you have one of these other toys, it can make it a little more fun. But yeah, it's very empowering. And you can ask them, like, how did it feel to erase that? Next up is a music playlist. So I love using music in my counseling sessions. This is great with individuals. Most students are probably passionate about music or like music. I feel like, especially like middle school age, they really love music. It's a great get to know you activity because you can find out their interests, what kind of music they like, but it also doubles as a coping tool. So you can have them make a playlist to use whenever they feel angry, or make a playlist to help them calm down, or make a playlist to help them, get ready if they're going to dad's house, or to make a playlist to boost their mood, if they're about to go in to take a test or to relieve their test anxiety. So it doubles as a coping tool, and it's a good get to know you activity. So super fun. You can use your computer or your phone or whatever and have them make a playlist. Super easy to do using Spotify or something like that. Food. Who doesn't love food, right? Kids love snacks. We know this. So you can even personalize the food for their preferences. So if they like Skittles, or if they're chocolate lovers, do M&Ms, whatever. But you've seen these before, conversation starters, right? If you draw a pink one, tell me what you would do if you had $1 million. If you grab a blue one, tell me something you're scared of. If you grab a red one, tell me about the last time you felt angry. So you can use them as a easy get to know you game. Each color represents different things. I've also done like coping skills trail mix. So, okay, if you want to use taking deep breaths, add some pretzels to your bag. If you want to use listening to music, add some chocolate to your bag or whatever. So it's fun to use food, and kids love snacks. Now, of course, you want to consider potential allergens. Had to throw that in because peanuts, tree nuts, all the things. But if you know your kid doesn't have any allergies, or if their parents don't have a problem with it, it can be really fun to use some snacks in your sessions. And the last one I have for you guys is plants. So I've only done this like one time. We had like a community garden kind of thing, and I did it with one of my groups. But it's a great analogy. So friendship, talk about nurturing a friendship. What do you have to do? You have to plant the initial seeds, talk about that. You have to water, you have to care for it. Now, of course, with the plants, this is going to be something that goes over more than one session, right? So because of that, it also doubles as an attendance motivator. So kids want to see the progress with their plants. They're going to be more motivated to come back to their individual counseling session. Like I said, friendship's a good one. Growth mindset's a good one. Anything you can make an analogy for like cultivating or nurturing a plant would be great. It also is like a cute little, souvenir they can take home, making it super memorable, and they can remember what they learned in relation to the plant. And it doubles as a coping strategy, kind of like the playlist, because gardening is a good coping skill, right? Tending to something, taking care of it, working with your hands, all of those things. Okay, so I want you to get ready for some amazing individual sessions because you totally got this. Okay, so let's go. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Let's go to some questions. Or tell me, have you tried any of these before? Are you interested in trying any of these? What do you guys think? Does anyone have any questions or comments? Like I said, this week alone, or it's last week and this week, I used the figurines that were really powerful and the soda pop thing. That was great. And of course you could, this training is geared for individual counseling, but you could totally do these, in groups as well. But I think the whole point is that it's breaking down the barrier of the one-on-one, of that, the kid sitting down, maybe they don't want to be in counseling. That was kind of the case with my kid earlier this week. And the soda pop was fun because he was like, what are we about to do? Why do you have a can of LaCroix out here? It kind of piqued his interest a little bit because he was kind of like, I don't want to be here. So it's a good rapport building activity, hands-on activity. Because like I said, we want to increase that student engagement to make our sessions memorable in the hope that our students will, reach their transformation, reach their goals and their objectives. All right. I hope you found that helpful, everybody. If you have any questions, you can ask them now or feel free to drop them in the comments. If you joined a little late, we'll be posting this, so no worries. You can find it inside Impact. Hope you guys are loving the new Impact model with all your resources. Everything that was pictured here. Oh, you know what? I just realized I did picture a paper in here in my paperless one. In the soda pop one, I did have a paper, but you could just talk about how you don't have to write it down, but you could just have them name things as they shake the can or as they shake the bottle. Because I did want this to be truly paperless. So, all right. I hope you found this helpful. Thanks so much, guys, and we'll talk soon. Bye.